Welcome everybody to this session in which we will present the recently started project ZEFES. And ZEFES stands for Zero Emissions Flexible Vehicle Platforms with Modular Powertrains Serving for Long-Haul Freight Ecosystem. And this is a 42 months project, and it just started on January this year. And actually, this project is one of the projects funded under the 2.0 program within the Horizon Europe program. And it's we are as Alice, we are really looking forward to this and other projects coming from this partnership that we set up together with other platforms and the Commission at the start of the Horizon Europe program. And now we see all these new projects starting. But I don't want to take a lot of much time of the introduction. So I would like to move on with the agenda. We will have two main protagonists speaking today. The first one is Kraaijenhagen, working currently for the BUV in Brussels. And yeah, we know Ben for long in Alice, even before in his previous life working for an OEM. And also you may know him for other projects like Aeroflex. So then, and he is the technical coordinator of ZEFES project. So that's also already a guarantee of success. And then later on, Marcel Huschebeck from PTB will write more in what we expect from the stakeholders. And at the end, I invite you also to take an active role in this project and accompany the whole duration of this project, so then we can really learn together, but also get your insights into the project to make it to make the results more appealing for the industry in general. So I stop here and welcome again everybody. And now the floor is yours, Ben.
Thank you very much, Fernando, for the nice words and the short introduction. As Fernando said, Ben Kraaijenhagen, together with Omar Hegazi from the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, we were the initiator of this project. And we will also drive the project, me myself, as technical coordinator, as Fernando said already. I'm going to explain a bit the background of the project, why we are doing the project. Then there is a short Q&A, and then we are going to present some outlines of the project, which will then also be ended with a Q&A, and then Marcel Huschebeck from PTV will take over. The introduction, why are we doing this project? We have a lot of challenges ahead, and the challenges is really how can we reduce the emissions we are producing every year? How can we reform the use of land? And how can we invest the money in the right way so that we strive for innovations which are really contributing to the search of new energies, new materials, how to reform the use of land, and how can we award people to do these invests. And I think the sentence in the right bottom corner of this picture, we are on a highway to climate hell with our foot on the accelerator. I think this is still truth, and we need to go to a paradigm shift that we really do things in a different way. And this is the background of the project, how we have to put the project in the overall scenery on what is going on worldwide. If we look now to the European transport sector, and we see what are the predictions, then we see a massive growth of freight transport. And DLR made a study, part of a previous funded project, where you can see in this picture how the freight transport will grow by 2040. And it is really a massive growth. And if you look then, where is the growth? then you see that the growth is mainly on road, and it is really an absolute need that the other modes are also looking at how can they grow and how can they join to cope with the growth of freight of transport. Because even if we assume that rail and water will double its capacity by 2040, we still are confronted with a massive percentage of freight road transport. And that means that we have to look at new ways how to deal with logistics, how to deal with our mode capacities. And that means that we have to do more with less, because we cannot constantly let grow our infrastructure, and we have to pay that with a wrong management of use of land. So for the logistics, there is a need to become more efficient. Try to do less transport and try to improve that you do more transport with the same transport as today. All modes need to become more efficient, and that can only be through a collaboration. So that means that if we look at our project ZEFES, we have to include the people from the rail, we have to include people from water, because zero emission vehicles will also work in a logistics environment where we have to deal with other modes as well. But for sure is that road is inevitable, and that will be for long, as the picture is shown in the top right one. So also road needs to become as efficient as possible, and that counts for the vehicles, but also for the infrastructure. If we have zero emission vehicles, but we don't have the appropriate infrastructure, we will not manage to get this transition. And secondly, road needs to be compatible with other modes. And there I want to refer to how can we access hubs and terminals so that the loading units which are transported by truck can also be transported by other modes. That also implicates that we have to discuss the weight and dimension directives so that we can have a better tuning between the modes. If we look then at the strategic challenges and the risks, then, and we go back to the previous slide and translate that in what needs to be done, then we need to look at the legislation and safety requirements. We have to look at EU directives on a European level, but we also have to look on country level and regional levels, because we have seen already that the transition to zero emission vehicles has also complications with regard to legislative requirements. The economical situation is that energy prices are very irregular, and there is an unbalance in energy taxes through all the European countries. Last but not least, we have to look at incentives to invest in sustainability. And the right picture is a diagram what our challenges with regard to emission reduction. The Fit for 55 is known by everybody. And for the vehicles, the freight road vehicles, there is a specific target under discussion that we need to meet the minus 30% by 2030 for OEM sales at a fleet level. So the challenges are there, and we need to work together with the legislations, and we need to work among the economical conditions, and we need to look at how to invest in the right technologies. If we look at these technologies, then we see that a lot of operators and a lot of people around us do not trust these new technologies and the concepts, because it's unknown to them, so we have a knowledge gap, and the people also don't trust the safety. So within our project, we have to work on this issue that we engage as much as possible end users, people around us, people who are within the logistic framework, but also the inhabitants of cities, etc., so that they get trust and that they get use and the acceptance of these new technologies, and that they learn about the safety of these technologies. The second point is, of course, the lack of sufficient charging and the hydrogen refueling infrastructure. The picture on the right shows an example of the Traton group who is working on a scenario how they can build up a charging infrastructure for zero-emission trucks. Also, other OEMs are working on this in collaborations. We have to look at standards so that we have compliance with European and worldwide standards, and we have to look at sustainable materials. If we look at the logistic challenges, we are in an intermodal freight transport, and we need the support of a digital platform, because for a logistics operator, there are always certain criteria very important that he will decide along which mode he will transport the freight. He needs to look at the duration of the journey. How fast can I go from A to B? And secondly, what is the probability that I will arrive on time so that I can offer my goods in the right quality on time? And of course, we have to look at the cost, and that including the external cost. And if we can achieve that the modes can work together in an efficient way, and that we can contribute to these three criteria, we have a huge achievement and a progress in moving towards the zero emission roadmap. If we reflect on previous European funded projects, we got a lot of criticism and we got a lot of advices how to continue in new projects. The first one was that we should engage freight transport and logistic companies. And later you will see we are doing this in the ZEFES project. And this is also one of the reasons that we have today already, straight at the beginning of the project, this Alice webinar, because we really want to engage people out of the freight transport and the logistics to get them engaged into these new technologies, and that we learn from them, because they can tell us what we should do, and they can tell us what we should do and where we should look at with regard to KPIs and their requirements. We need to focus more on palletized goods, because we need to focus on those freight transport which is valid for road, and that is really having the right focus. But on the other hand, we need also more granularity, because every industry is different and every industry has its specific requirements and needs, and this also across regions and cross borders. Then we have to look at EMS systems, European modular systems, to fit within those vehicles also zero emission technologies, because this can help us for specific applications speed up the process to transition into zero emission vehicles. We have to look at the efficiency gains used to transition assets and not to reduce prices. So the idea behind this is that with all these new technologies, combining with EMS systems, combining with other multimodal transport systems, we should not reduce the price of transport, but we should use the cost savings to really reinvest it in a further way in vehicles and infrastructure. And we have, of course, to discuss the review of the Weight and Dimensions Directive to allow innovations. A typical example is a trailer with an electric axle, which is part of the powertrain, is not drafted and not defined in the actual weight and dimension directives. As said already, collaboration is key. And collaboration, you can only do that with an efficient digital platform or digital platforms. Because the digital platform needs to cover the logistics assignment, it needs to look at the vehicle performance and the diagnostics, it needs to look at dynamic navigation and road access management. And why is that so important? We have a lot of players in this logistic world. We have the users which are using infrastructure, whether it's road, whether it's rail, water, or air. We have the policymakers and the ones who need to check compliance. They need to know what is happening and they need to describe and directives and rules so that we can fulfill the rules and that we can really transport in a safe way. We have the providers from IT systems who are guiding the users to find their way, whether it is navigation, whether it's the way of warehousing, etc. And the bottom right are the planners and the owners of the infrastructure. So these are the people from the road, the rail, the water, but also the terminals, the hubs, and the energy infrastructure, where we need to look at specifically in the coming years. In the middle, you see the facilitator, who in our view, and this is also a result from previous projects, who is in the middle of the user, the policymaker, the provider, and the planners, and he is able to collect data and to deliver data to those stakeholders who need the data in the right form. And if you look to the GDPR directive, he can play a nice role to really fulfill these directives and to really make sure that those who need data get the data they need in the right quality and at the right time, and it ensures that data is not misused or getting to the wrong addresses. As said, do more with less. And what are the opportunities through collaboration? We see 6 fields we have defined, and we see, and the first of all is high capacity transport. Because by high capacity transport, which has 2 levels, transport when your loading unit is full and not transport empty. Use other vehicle configurations to reduce the number of vehicles, to reduce the number of ton kilometers, and to save space in the infrastructure. The second field is zero emission tailpipe vehicles and non-fossil fuels and aerodynamics, so that we really reduce the emissions. Automation of vehicles to make traffic more safe and again to save space. Digital platforms, as explained already previously, to reduce the number of ton kilometers and reduce traffic in general. Mode compatibility to have less road use and to have a more efficient collaboration between the modes. And finally, the intelligent access to manage traffic, to ensure the right truck with the right cargo on the right road at the right time. Because the little movies show how you can manage traffic around urban areas, but also on motorways, crossings, etc. And you can include the art of cargo. Blood transport is highest urgency. Vegetables and fruit, so conditioned goods, needs to be transported within a certain time limit to be on time at the address. But pallets, for example, do have a fair, flexible time schedule, and combining the cargo or the freight, combining the destination and the route and the intensity of the traffic, you can decide when can a specific truck drive on which road with what cargo at what time. And you could even couple to that the charging infrastructure to achieve the right place at the right charging point or fuel point at the right timing. And finally, you could even combine this with a payment so that you really can award people who are investing in emission-free vehicles. They get prior to vehicles with a traditional powertrain. So far, the introduction, why we are doing this project. And as I said, I have built in now a Q&A because I can imagine that there might be people who have some remarks or questions, and then we should do that before we introduce the project itself.
For the moment, Ben, I have not seen a question on this. I have seen a question on the advisory board and the stakeholder group, but maybe we can address that later on. So then if anybody has a question, I don't see reactions. Something is coming here.
There is some in the coming years, the carbon footprint per mode will change, road transport, and then I cannot read anymore.
Transport is getting more sustainable, and advantages of rail and barge will, as a consequence of that, diminish. And for capacity, for instance, you will see that modern techniques like making more efficient use of the capacity will also enable to take the capacity we have now on the roads. Is this also taken in account that in fact the situation between the modes, the clean mode moment and the more, you could say, dirty one, will be a static situation, it will be a dynamic situation in the years towards the end of the Green Deal in 2050.
I have not heard everything quite well. Fernando, have you heard everything quite well?
Yeah, I think the point Gottfried made is that eventually, even if you position this scenario in which doubling inland waterways transport or rail is realized, but a little bit maybe this as road is advancing, maybe that scenario could be challenged. But I think Gottfried, the question or the idea there is that there are a lot of beliefs in which they say everything will move to rail and inland waterways, but eventually even answering or achieving those objectives that are quite doubling the amount of freight in rail, for example, we see that looking into the amount of freight, road transportation will be still the most relevant mode, and that's why this needs to be developed, particularly on these clean energies and also together in electrification and hydrogen. So it's at the end justifying, and then we will see the amount, but it will be always a very important part of our transportation that will need to be still on road. So I that was the point that Gottfried made, if I understood correctly. I don't know if maybe Ben, if you want to add something.
No, okay. We have looked at this DLR study which was made in 2020, and we have done this scenario exercise in the framework of a previous funded project, and looking at what is the way forward, we are sure that we need to have a growth of the other modes, rail and water, for the simple reason that looking at the road infrastructure today, we are already faced with a lot of congestions, and motorways which are completely blocked. So we need to address this topic, and we need to look also in the ZEFES project to this topic. How can we create these zero emission heavy duty vehicles which are able to work in a context of multimodality. So we have rail people on board in our project, we have water people on board in our project, and this will ensure that our vehicles we are going to look at in our project are able to enter hubs and terminals and to do this multimodal, contribute to this multimodal freight transport. Okay, if no more questions are left, Fernando, then I would like to continue. So the ZEFES project, as said, zero emission flexible vehicle platforms with modular powertrains serving the long haul freight ecosystem. So we are really looking at flexible vehicle platforms, and this is done because we know we will have a mix in the near future of vehicles having still combustion engines, will have battery electric powertrains, will have fuel cell powertrains. So we need to have platforms where we enable the vehicle users every time the same vehicle, independent from what powertrain is installed. And this is also the only way to ensure that it is compatible with existing loaner units and existing vehicle platforms itself, trailers, etc. The focus on the ZEFES project is very clearly the zero emission tailpipe vehicles and the digital platforms. What we will touch is the intelligent access. So we need to do that because of the energy infrastructure. And we will look at mode compatibility. As said, we have people from rail and people from water in our project. And we are looking at high capacity transport because there are already a lot of countries where we see these kind of vehicles within this chapter of high capacity transport. So also zero emission tailpipe vehicles need to be able to perform in this high capacity scenery, and that in a mode compatibility. So these are the focus points on our project. And we are not focusing on automation of vehicles because there we have other projects, but for sure we will have some communication with these projects so that we don't lose at all the track to them. Who are we? We have at this moment 40 partners. We have 7 OEMs. You see them in the left block. We have 10 suppliers, 8 shippers and retail companies, and 9 research companies. Then you will say this doesn't add up to 40, which is correct, because we have some affiliate companies which are then part of these who are mentioned here, and then finally we are up to 40 partners. We have already some stakeholders in our project, but as said, this is one of the reasons that we have organized this webinar already at this early stage of the project to really make promotion for the project and really to ask you join the project, to engage yourself and to show us the way and to guide us in fulfilling our targets, but fulfilling your needs and your requirements, because finally you are the end user of those projects which are the outcome of this project. One other very important point is that we have created an EVETO cluster, and that is a cluster of advanced electric heavy-duty vehicles for efficient and economic transport operations. And this is a cluster which include all funded projects under the umbrella of the CL5 D50108, because parallel to ZEFES, there are some other projects which are working at the same topics. So joining us as stakeholder group in our project automatically means you will have access to what is going on in the projects like Escalate, Empower, Next eTruck, and H2Hall. And since we are setting up a collaboration between those projects, we can also use their data to integrate in our digital platform to see that and to ensure that our digital platform is really accessible for all users. What are our goals? The OEM suppliers and research partners will work together to achieve the overall goal of the zero emission vehicles for long distance heavy transport. And we will focus on efficiency improvements. We will focus on mass production capabilities, and we are going to demonstrate in real operations. You will see that later, so that all the technologies are used in real daily operations at end users, so shippers, retailers, and operators. We see the stakeholders group as a key for our project, because we need from your side your advice and your guidance that we keep on track with the needs and requirements you have, and that we really are contributing to a freight transport ecosystem. What is our ambition? Our ambition is that all the innovations we are going to introduce in the coming 2 to 3 years will be implemented by 2028, 2029, so that you can really use them by then. And as said, the objective is that we are looking at modular vehicle platforms with multi-powertrains. We are going to demonstrate an energy infrastructure like megawatt charging systems which are interoperable. And we are going to deploy the hydrogen refueling stations. So we are really going into mapping Europe. We are looking at the corridors, and we are looking into where do we need the charging points, where do we need the hydrogen refueling stations. And this is already a challenge in itself, because we need them there latest 2024 at the end, because in 2025 we want to drive with our vehicle combinations through Europe. We will work on the digital and fleet management tools to support the implementation of zero emission vehicles into fleets. And as said, we are going to demonstrate missions on cross-border 10T corridors to fulfill the requirements for range and payload. And we are going to compare the deployment of battery electric vehicles and fuel cell vehicles to demonstrate to logistics people, to shippers and transport companies, what is for their use case the best vehicles with the best powertrains. We are looking into pathways for price reduction and volume increase, because at this very moment, electric vehicles and fuel cell vehicles are very costly, and we need to achieve a price which is compatible to the price of combustion engine driven vehicles today. And we will do an in-depth analysis on the impact on the business, the society, and the energy efficiency. What will be the project outcomes? We will look at 5 flexible vehicle platforms. We will look at optimal operation and competitive total cost of ownership. We will demonstrate that fuel cell also can achieve a lifetime of 30,000 hours. And we will work on connected trailers, because we will have in our project e-trailers, so trailers with an electric axle, and a battery system to be part of the powertrain. We will have a battery trailer, so a trailer with a battery connected with the battery in the trailer of the prime mover. And we will have a e-cooled trailer for the transport of fruit, vegetables, so conditioned goods. With regard to the framework, we will have digital twins for vehicles. We will have digital twins for logistics operation. We will have TCO models, and we will have a co-design tool for right sizing of e-components in zero-emission vehicles. From the perspective from the logistics, we will look at their needs and requirements. We will look at a collaborative business model. We will look at the legal and administrative barriers. And as said already, we will do the infra mapping for CPOs and HRS. With regard to innovations, we are looking at modularity because we believe modularity is the only way that we can look at integrated solutions and that we really can ensure that one vehicle platform can have multi-powertrains. So two important projects from the past, which were Aeroflex and Transformers. Those two projects have really looked at the complete vehicle being in the logistics world. So from those two projects, we have a lot of knowledge and expertise. What does it mean that the truck is in a logistics environment operating? And this was the driver to really define we have to look at flexible and modular vehicle concepts. And in that, we have to integrate these modular zero-emission multi-powertrains. And to do that, we have to look at the orange bubbles, which are terminal management. We have to integrate auxiliaries, and we have to modular energy management systems. And for today, it goes too far to go in details of these three orange bubbles, but behind them, there is a lot of work to do within our project. And we have to look at the energy infrastructure because the vehicle have to fit within the drive and rest time schedules, and they have to fit in the time slots the truck needs to arrive at the final destination to deliver the goods. The digital platform is looking at seamless integration of zero-emission heavy-duty vehicles. So the operators can use the platform to identify what is for me the best way to integrate zero-emission vehicles in the coming years, in the coming periods, to really contribute to the to zero roadmap. We are looking at efficient assignment of tasks and routes, matching the vehicles with the infrastructure and the cargo, matching with the energy infrastructure, looking at charging strategies, the range, charging times, and parking. We will look at proper data protection framework and the data exchange models for the digital twins. And this, what I've said at the beginning, we need to comply with the data protection rules, and we need to make sure that those digital twins are open to any other digital twin, which is somewhere used by logistics operators already, or data service providers, infrastructure service providers, hubs, etc., etc., etc. The digital twin needs to be from an open source so that everybody can connect to it and that we have a proper and compliant data exchange model. We will look in predictive maintenance because this is very important with zero-emission vehicles, because the energy infrastructure is a topic, because the weight of those vehicles is still a topic, because we are looking at new componentry. So it is important that we know exactly how is the vehicle performing so that the operator can act on time and that we can react on time so that the the logistic task is not harmed by an eventual event. As said, we have already some logistics partner, shippers and retailers in our project. You can see them in the left column of this chart. We are looking into temperature control goods. We are looking into general cargo. We are looking into consumer goods. We are looking in parcel distribution. We are looking in the transport of heavy steel. And we are looking into the transfer of automotive components. So a vast variety, and by that we have not the focus on one specific freight, but we have a nice portfolio so that we really can deal with different logistics tasks. The challenge looking at the routes is that we have use cases up to 1,300 kilometers daily, which is then a two-man operation. We have to look at hub-to-hub and factory-to-factory transport so that we can see how can we operate in critical time slots. We have use cases where we have to cross tunnels, mountains, bridges, complex infrastructure routings, and we have multimodal use cases. So we will transport vehicles on ferries, we will transport vehicles on train, and we will look at the charging, the refueling, but also at what are the safety requirements to get this vehicle on the train or on the ferry. And we are looking at cross Europe. You see already the lines that we are really looking at a corridor from the south of Spain up to the north of Sweden, a corridor from the west of Belgium down to the south of Italy, down from the Netherlands down to deep in Austria, and we have a corridor in Turkey, and we have some corridors in the middle of France. So we are really crossing the main European countries where the main transport is also taking place, and that means automatically that we have to include from the beginning on of the project the authorities where we are passing the region, the countries, to make it possible that we get the right approvals and the permits to drive these vehicles on these roads. Looking at the KPIs, we are looking at charging and refueling times because it should fit in the drive and rest schedules of the truck drivers today. We have to look at availability of technologies so that you can run the vehicles in a daily operation, and when something goes wrong, we can serve the vehicle. And we need to have the right energy carrier in the right quantity on board of the vehicle. So the challenge is, how can you perform a 1,300 kilometer one-way travel in one day? What does that mean for the energy carry in the vehicle? We have to look at the cost. We have to look at the remote optimization and predictions. And as said already, we have to look at the permissions to drive. Here again, you see the demonstrations, and the rail people and ferry people are involved. As said, we have the people from the Puttgarden Rodby in our use case, and we have the rail line between Dudelange and Le Belou in France, Dudelange, Luxembourg, and Le Belou at the French-Spanish border. And we will use the rail line from Zeebrugge, Belgium, down to Milano. And this is then to reduce the vehicles on the road, but the cargo is transported on the train. So we have a combination of vehicles on a ferry, trailers on the train, containers on the train, and then the appropriate vehicle are moving the cargo from A to B. We will have 15 demonstrations, as said already, intermodal cross-border. The demonstration have a duration of 15 months. They will start in Q2 2025 up to Q2 2026, and we will gather more than 1 million kilometers. Here you see a view of which vehicle is running with which operator, and this is also a nice portfolio so that we really have all the vehicles in different logistic tasks running, so that we really get a wide portfolio of data collection for different vehicle technologies. And the vehicle technologies are shown here. The picture right top is showing the fuel cell in the cabin for this icon. And when it's a battery electric vehicle, the battery is between the two axles. And then we have different kind of trailers. We have an e-cooler for the conditioned cargo. We have e-axles in a few trailers. We have batteries in a few trailers. And of course, all trucks do have electric axles. So here you see the vehicles which are running at what logistic tasks. So from standard vehicles with e-cooled trailers, as fuel cell, as battery vehicle, in all kind of daily operations. And it's clear that this one is a two-man operation. Here we see the Ford vehicles in different configurations, the Volvo vehicles in different configurations, the Renault vehicles in different configurations. So we have a nice portfolio covering all kind of missions in all kind of vehicle configurations and in this multimodal context. So far, a short introduction of the project. Time for Q&A.
Yeah, Ben, thank you for the presentation. I see a couple of questions. So meantime, the other participants may think on their questions. There is one question that if the life cycle analysis of the vehicles will be carried out, and there is anything on that, and saying that LCA is an important point. So could you clarify or give a hint on that one?
Yes. As I explained, let's first start with the fuel cell vehicle. One task in the project is to look at the fuel cell for heavy-duty vehicle concepts. And in this task, we need to prove that a fuel cell concept can achieve the 30,000 hours of operation, and that is more or less the equivalent of the lifetime of a truck as it is running today. Secondly, for all the vehicles and for all the use cases, we do life cycle analysis. Of course, tank to wheel, and we will look also at the well to tank part as far we have access to data. And this is, of course, where we might have a topic is the data of where is the fuel coming from. Electricity might cause us some headaches to get the right data to do the complete cycle analysis. For the hydrogen, we will look at certified hydrogen that we know that it is from green sources. The tank to wheel analysis are easy because we are cooperating with the OEMs, with the trailer manufacturers. So this is all in-house. So there we can handle the case by ourselves. So there we will have complete life cycle analysis to really demonstrate the impact asset from the business point of view, from the society point of view, and from the environmental point of view. I hope the question is answered sufficiently by that.
Yeah, to complement what Ben said, as part of the 2.0 partnership, there is one of the pillars that is on cycle analysis, and in that under that pillar, there are few projects already going on looking into the materials that are used for building the tracks and the vehicles in general. So then, really addressing all the details on the life cycle analysis beyond to the tank to wheel. And then the other point, the other question is that, if and how the charging strategy could include varying charging price during the day location. So then, that's an item that be input for the models and all that.
Yeah. As you saw, we have those 15 use cases, 15 demonstrations, and this is the challenge also to build in this digital platform. How can I forecast a route that a driver knows when do we need to start the journey to arrive on time at a specific charging point or filling station. And of course, not only his drive and rest schedule plays a role, but also the pricing plays a role. Because we know that during the 24 hours of a day, prices might vary between the morning, the afternoon, midday, the night. So it will be a challenge that if we're looking at charging strategies and filling strategies, that route assignment to drive from A to B might be a different route as you would do today. What for me is very clear is that the way truck drivers are driving today along their known corridors and along their known routes, this might change using the platform for the simple reason that you have to make sure that when you arrive at a charging point, the charging point is free, so it is accessible, and you want to do that at a moment that the pricing is also in line with what you would expect. So there is a real challenge. I hope the question is answered in the right way.
I think so. And I also see a hand from Helder. So Helder,
okay.
if you want, you can take the floor.
Hello, Fernando. Good morning to everyone. I'm sorry, but my camera is not working, so I have to only use the audio. So, good morning also, Mr. Kraaijenhagen. I want to ask more of a procedural question, sir, rather than a more content one, because I was positively surprised by this concept of having a stakeholders group supporting the project. Maybe this is not new, maybe is something that exists, but I had never seen it. I'm used to seeing the advisory board bringing in external stakeholders, but never this concept. So could you just kind of say a few words on how you came about with this concept, and what would you like to see flourishing beyond the contributions that I'm sure you would like to get from us, but how you would like to see this group flourishing from here on. Thank you very much, and good work to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, when we have finished my session, Marcel Huschebeck will dive into the stakeholders group, but I can already say a few words to that. The idea of the stakeholder group is born in a previous project, Aeroflex, where we started with this to really include stakeholders in the project. So they have to sign a letter of support, and that gives you some rights that you really can engage. and that you will also see some results of the project, which we cannot make public because of data protection rules. But if you join the club and you be a member, then first of all, we expect from a stakeholder that he engage himself, so that he really is actively telling us what we need to do, what his requirements are, what his worries are. And it might happen that we will give this stakeholder also a specific task if he wants to perform this. And the awarding of that is that you have some more inside view of project results. And you are, of course, a part of the project result, because your input is then also part of the game, so to say. So, and this idea has worked very well and keeps us awake, because I expect from a stakeholder that he wakes us up every time, and that he is very critical, and that he doesn't keep things for his own, because otherwise we are burning money and nobody will use it after the project. But later Marcel will explain in more detail what we really want to know from you. Is that sufficient?
At this, I think this stage, yes, and now I think the rest of the call will be dedicated to these next steps. So then
Yep.
maybe Marcel,
Yep.
you can then take over. I think Ben will still
Yes, I will
manage the
do.
presentation. Okay, good.
I saw one remark, if I may, about the perspective of weight and dimensions. All I want to say is that we are in very close contact with DG Move in this project, and DG Move is also willing to participate in this project from the stakeholders' point of view. So we have a close contact there. But now I hand over to Marcel.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. So I will introduce I mean, the question was already the best transfer from, let's say, the overall project idea into what are the first step and how do we kick this project off. So my name is Marcel Huschebeck. I'm from PTV. We are a software developing company located in Karlsruhe, and we are responsible for Work Package 1, which is on needs and requirements for zero emission heavy trucks. So what we want to do, so in summarize, I think there are three, or let's say the overall objective of Work Package 1 is to work out and let's say dive deeper into this transformation process. So replacing fossil fuel propelled trucks by electric propelled trucks, and in different layouts. So it's not only that we are looking at let's say standard configurations. So we identified, as Ben already said, European modular systems in our considerations, as well as distributed powertrains. So it will be not only let's say a simple technology replacement, it's affecting all fields in logistics, and it's a kind of overarching ecosystem of infrastructure charging possibilities, of logistics mission planning, and of technology transfer from fossil fueled or diesel propelled trucks towards electric propelled trucks. And what we want to do in this Work Package 1, in the end, it's three things that we want to dive deeper and where we want to involve stakeholders. It's firstly to discuss with stakeholders about possible solutions. So who has already experiences and made first experiences in implementing electric truck fleets. The second one is the identification of problems and where should we focus on, and then to derive out of this exercise concrete requirements. And this is exactly where we want to involve stakeholders. So enlarge the group of the project, get external expertise into our activities, and let's say define a set of requirements that we can then transfer into the work packages and take up there in our technological, but also in our methodological developments. So we address the requirements analysis on various fields, as I said. So it's not only that we are looking at technology parts, It's also affecting logistics and business case parts. It's affecting legal and administrative parts, and also the energy infrastructures. So how can I use and recharge? Ben showed quite well the quite ambitious demonstrations and use cases that we have in the project, which are quite challenging to realize on a technical level. However, taking all the other considerations into account. So when we are talking, for example, about cross-border operations with fuel cell propelled trucks. So we are not really sure if this is possible. So we need to dive deeper into that. We need to look at where do we get the permissions, involve these kind of stakeholders at a quite early stage in the project, not once the technology is ready and then we are waiting. So we need to let's say include them already at a quite early stage. When looking at logistics, so we need to define possibly new missions, or let's say identifies those missions which suit best or superior for electric and fuel celled electric trucks. So look here at business cases, which ones fit perfect. We might have changes in the calculations. So the total cost of ownership is a quite important role in this context, so that we are looking here. Are we talking about same depreciation factors as for diesel propelled, or are we have a longer usage of these electric trucks? So these influence the whole mission planning and the whole deployment of these electric fleets. And finally, the availability also of electric infrastructure, charging infrastructure. How to integrate this then into a, let's say, round trip or into a supply chain planning. So can I charge on the trip? Do I need to return to the depot? Again, has impact on the mission planning, has impact on where can I locate fleets. So these kind of requirements we are looking for at right now at this early stage. And therefore we have set up a number of, let's say, stakeholder inquiries and workshop rounds in order to, let's say, discuss with you and to get you involved already at that stage into our project activities. So next slide, please. So we have set a number of workshops, and so today we consider this webinar as a kind of kickoff event in order to inform you and let's say make aware that the project is in place and what we are doing. So the first prominent workshop that we are right now organizing, and we want to publish the agenda early next week, so we just finalize it, is to have a dedicated stakeholder workshop on mission planning and business cases. So looking at this logistics and commercial side of electric heavy trucks. So this will take place on the 27th of February from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So it's a for our workshop. It's limited in space, so it's a face-to-face meeting. So thanks, we are able again in order to organize face-to-face meetings and to discuss intensively about these approaches. So we have, as I understood, we have about 30 places available. So we will publish the agenda soon, and hopefully we get let's say good involvement from stakeholders that have already experiences with electric trucks usages. So in order to identify, as said, good solutions, look at specific problems and to derive concrete requirements. We have a dedicated session then followed on that on 9th of March with the IRU. Looking here specifically as a follow-up activity on the conclusions, but also then on the political aspects in this one more deeper. And then we have a dedicated session on the transport and logistics in Munich. So we have here, let's say, we started discussion about finding a suitable slot, but we want to invite, or we take this let's say event and take the possibility that many stakeholders will be present on this event, so that we can continue in a similar way as we do it right now on the 27th in February, to do this also in Munich. There will be two events planned. So one is from Klekat on the 9th of May, and the second one is from Alice, which is on the 11th of May. So we will come here with some more details, and also some invitations will be shown then later on. And then we have also from IDIADA on the on the let's say licensing and regulation side. There will be also followed up on by additional workshops and interviews. So you see, we have a sequence of stakeholder involvement meetings, and we are quite, let's say, confident and hoping on getting your active contributions and input into our activities. So next slide, please. So here, this is to introduce into the workshop that is planned for the 27th February in Brussels. So we have rented a room at the Blue Point building. And as said, so we will start at 12 o'clock with a registration and light lunch, and go into a technical or the workshop session then from 1 o'clock and up to 5 o'clock, 5:30. So we have the possibility here to discuss intensively with key stakeholders. We have invited already 6 partners and external stakeholders that can contribute out of their experiences, their conclusions and their requirements on electric and fuel cell propelled heavy trucks. So coming from Prima Frio, from Colruyt, so Volkswagen, we have asked and have some first discussion. So this is to be defined next week. So from Einride, there will be someone coming discussing about or showing us their business case and the example on their mission planning in, let's say, large fleet management and operations. We dive deeper into a specific project that was executed in Germany. It's HOLA. Addressing the charging infrastructure. And then also, let's say, from logistics service provider view, we have asked Gruber to contribute from their perspective on their mission planning and business cases using electric trucks. So as said, we want to publish this agenda by next week, and we have a limited number of capacity. So the first booking will be the first serve. Next slide, please. Okay, at this stage, I would like to hand over to Fernando so that he can, let's say some more words about the stakeholder roles in ZEFES.
Okay, now you know more about the ZEFES project, the why, what we are going to do, and also Marcel, the next connection opportunities. I would like to explain a little bit more in detail about the stakeholder group role in ZEFES, and actually I saw Catherine Metzler already open the camera from Uni Research, and actually they are leading the stakeholder group, but with our support. At the end, the stakeholder group, it's a little bit advanced concept of an advisory board, because it's a group of people that will accompany the project during the project to provide input, to share requirements, experiences they have had, and then in return they will get the work of the project that will work on really getting through all those various problems and learnings and getting insights back to the stakeholder group people based on their experience and capability, really to create this share of knowledge and exchange, but also to look into how future policies standardization needs to be developed in a way that we can take the best out of the project. So then the next step, now we are collecting the requirements, but the demonstrations will be there, and for that we may eventually still welcome use cases for these trucks that will be developed. So then if you would like to, or you think you have a use case to test and demonstrate these vehicles, you can contact us. It's not for sure that we will be able to get into that, but we will be really happy to get from you these use cases, and why not get these trucks tested in those ones as well. And then after that, to share with you and discuss and validate the intermediate results of the project. Some of the results of the project are have some proprietary rights. So then those will not go through you because it's property of the owners of the results. But in most cases, particularly for the missions of logistics and the logistics stakeholders, I think most of the work will be open, and then you will be able to look into that and validate. And for us, it's also a good way to for you to help in communication, dissemination, and get all the information that and eventually individual connections in which we can really exchange on the developments of the project. So if we go to the next slide. So at the end, some of the questions that we are addressing internally in ZEFES, but also we want to address with the stakeholder group, is really on the design of the use cases, identification, and how we can make them work in a successful way in 2025. Maybe for that we need to rethink a little bit the logistics and supply chain operations. So then that's one of the points. And then actually get you involved in defining these use cases and particularly demonstrating these vehicles. Then really the other point is that on these electric and heavy hydrogen, heavy duty trucks, and the compatibility with the cross-border operation in European modular systems. And here it's very much linked to the revision of the directive on weight and dimensions that it's ongoing, and it will be there for a couple of years in all the procedures. Now the Commission will issue their recommendation, and then this will go to Parliament, Member States. So it will take a couple of years probably to get this in place. So then there is an opportunity to discuss with legislation on what's there, but also how really we can move from this one per one use cases and to get road permissions, licenses to a more reliable, scalable framework for solutions, because at the end cannot work that for a cross-border operation you need to get individual permissions case by case when you want to operate, for example, a fuel cell truck. So all this needs to be sorted, and then we will do this through ZEFES, but we want to get here the more support we get and the more experiences we get, the better we will be positioning our thoughts and our outcomes in the project. Then it's also a matter of vehicles homologation, and I know many of ADIS members are getting these problems when they are testing a new vehicle. Then they cannot test the operation because the vehicle is not homologated, but the costs and processes to homologate a vehicle will only be worth if it's operating. So then it's a little bit chicken and the egg with these new vehicles, but then we want to work on that and understanding how we can improve, and then also how to get the energy to the infrastructure and the charging and hydrogen, where, how, and also the other questions that we got in the kickoff meeting. It's more linked to all these planning routes, planning tools, routing tools, and how to really get these vehicles in large scale into the fleets and the operations, and not as they are now, that are maybe mainly case by case, but in a more wider framework for them to be operated. So then if you want to contribute these discussions with your experiences, you are welcome to join the stakeholder group. Please contact Catherine or Ben or myself, so then we can get you in all these invitations and in this process. And we would also want to learn from your experiences what would be for you your wish for ZEFES to develop and then give you in return after the project. And just to share with you that for the actually the event that we will do in Transport and Logistics Munich. It will not only be ZEFES, we will also have participation of 2.0 and a sister project called Empower. So then you will get a lot of good overview and detailed overview on the possibility to talk to all of us. So then with this, I go back maybe to Van. Before that, thanking everybody for your support, and we stay connected. And just to share with you, this will be shared afterwards, so then you can revisit or come back. Ben, you're mute. Could not be a meeting without that phrase. So then.
So thank you very much, Fernando. I think that was a good summary of the stakeholder group and what we expect from this, and we really do hope that a lot of people will join. As said, today is really an introduction of the project and a kickoff for the stakeholders. If you are a member, of course, we stay connected by mails and team meetings. We will do as much as possible virtual meetings, but we are also planning some face-to-face meetings, as you already have heard. And it will not say that it ends at August, because the project has a duration of 42 months. And in general, we are striving for minimum one face-to-face meeting per year. But depending on the topic and the content, we will have, beside the virtual meetings, we will organize then smaller face-to-face meetings. So that brings me in fact to the end of the meeting. I really hope that everybody had a good inside view now. There will be a website soon. What we have shown today will be available as a PDF file, so that you can read it afterwards, and really be free to come back. Feel free to come back to us, and with questions, with remarks. We are there to support you. So you can get in touch with myself, with Katrin Metzler from Uni Research, Marcel Huschebeck from PTV, and Fernando Liesa from the Alice. And we are all happy to answer all questions and to keep you informed about the progress of the project and the upcoming invitation for the meetings. So far, I would like to thank you all for your joining, for your attention. I hope you found it interesting, and of course I would like to thank Katrin, Marcel and Fernando for the good support that I could make this presentation and all the inputs, so thank you very much. And I hope for further input from the side, from the stakeholders. So from my view, we see each other soon, I hope at the 27th of February in Brussels. And otherwise, we see each other latest on the Transport and Logistics in Munich, because that's an event which is a whole week, and there are enough reasons to be there and to join us. So I hope to see you soon back.